Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Big Bros Podcast, episode 50 today.
Wowee, it's been a year since we launched around that, no?
Can you believe it? Yeah, it's been a year and we've made it to episode 50, so this is exciting.
I know.
This is honestly, credit to us, mate. Be proud of it. I'm freaking proud of it. I'm just thinking back to episode 1 here when we were sitting in this position, not knowing what the hell we're doing, still not knowing what the hell we're doing it, but that's the beauty. We're cracking on and we're having fun with it. And we're so thankful to be here at episode 50, and we can't thank you guys enough for getting us here as well. So let's dive into today. If it's your first time joining us, welcome. We love having you on board. I'm Jeremy, and I'm joined by my lovely friend and co-host,
Ilan, and I am beyond pumped for this episode, mate. It's a Q&A. We've wanted to do this for a while, haven't we?
We have.
And now we finally decided to put a link up so people can ask some anonymous questions, and here we are. We've got some interesting ones. I'm
Absolutely.
excited. I'm excited to get into it.
I'm so keen to dive into them. So let's kick it off. Question number 1 we've got here. What's your best Sunday morning hangover cure?
All right, get some electrolytes in you. So coconut water, hydrolyte, any of those will do. Get some fruit in as well. Big fat breakfast. Make sure it's high in cholesterol. Try and give yourself a heart attack with the food you're eating, because you just need that, high fats, a lot of oil.
Get the avocado in.
Avocado toast, maybe, bacon, that sort of thing. I don't know. Just something with that will give you a heart attack in the long term. But
nice and fatty.
And I would get some movement in, get some sunlight in. If you can, go for a walk. And if you've got a little bit of energy, try and do some exercise. If you have access to a sauna and you don't mind sauna, do that. And other than that, just keep drinking, have your fruit. And yeah, what about you? What do you think?
Mate, you've just reeled off a whole recipe list there, a whole shopping list of things. So there's not much there for me to add, honestly. You've nailed the key ones, being movement, good food, electrolytes, and maybe getting around some mates as well was one that I would add to, because there's nothing worse than feeling the scaries on your own. It helps having the mates around you as well to ride through it together. But
unless they remind you of all the shit decisions you made the previous night.
Absolutely, but that's just part of the fun, isn't it?
Awesome. All right. Next question. What's your advice for someone who's finished school, their mates know all what they want to do, but they themselves don't have any idea what to do in life or study? How do they find direction?
Try things. Your mates have clearly started trying things, and that's how they have found at least what they want to do, or are just trying something new to try to work out what it is they want to do. Whether that is something to do with study, whether that is a job, whether that is traveling, they're trying something. So if you haven't tried to start trying new things and putting yourself out there into new, maybe jobs, environments, travel experiences, whatever, just pick something and start it. You don't need to know what direction you want to be on. You don't need to know where you want to end up, but you got to know, you got to start somewhere to know eventually whether you like something enough to pursue it. So that is the best advice, is to just, in my opinion, to just start something, try something. Either you'll love it and you'll continue, you might not love it, and then you might drop it and start something else. And that's completely fine.
Yeah, I mean, you're on the ball there. You do have to start. You're not going to do yourself any favors by just sitting and doing nothing about it. I think if you just finish school, and your first, reaction might be, okay, I got to go into uni, I got to pick something to do. But you mentioned there the idea of traveling. I think if you've got the ability to take a year off and do a bit of exploration, have a bit of adventure.
Even if it's a couple months.
Yeah, even a couple months.
Weeks.
Doesn't have to be a whole year or half a year, but you'll learn a lot about yourself by just being in new environments.
Yeah.
Also, I would take observation of what you do in your free time. What do you do naturally that you have fun with? And see if it's something that has, for example, a deeper layer to it. For example, are you always watching videos on sport or content creation?
Fitness, whatever
it is.
Fitness,
it can be anything. And maybe you're like, okay, are there any jobs in this area? Speaking to a careers counselor. And then you can pick something that you might not be completely certain about. But it happens to be that once you start something, it's much easier to redirect course than it is to have delay your start and then start later and later, because you're just trying to think of the perfect thing to do. But there's no such thing as perfect. You try everything, you see what works for you, and it tends to be that what you're good at comes naturally, and you tend to just gravitate towards that with time.
Well, yeah, maybe not try everything, but try something. At least try something.
I would try as much as possible. When you have no kids, no responsibility, you're just fresh out of school, and you're literally still you still have a developing brain. Like the brain's not fully formed at 18. Try as many things as possible, just not hard drugs. Okay, next question. I think my best mate's sister is really hot. I have myself 5 years to make it happen with her. We flirted and talked, but my friend has no idea. What do I do? Should I tell my friend? I don't have a sister. You do. Take it away.
Yeah, look, well, you're saying, firstly, your best mates, apparently. Okay, so if you're best mates, I would hope that you're close enough to actually be communicating certain things with them. And if you're hiding something from your mate, if you're hiding your intentions, if you're not being honest, if you're being deceitful about what these intentions might be towards your so-called best mate's sister, then you're not a best mate. You're just a shit person. And it's as simple as that, because no best mate would... This sounds very behind the back deceitfulness, and no best mate would be deceitful, okay? That's important to understand. If you're friends and if you are best mates and there's maybe some interest there, if you're interested in your best mate's sister, I think you need to ask yourself what your intentions are first and make that clear. Because if your intentions are to just have a good time, then you probably don't really value your friendship with that mate in the first place.
Can I ask you a question? What if both your sister and that person want like a casual thing and it's consensual and it's not necessarily something serious? What's your thoughts on that situation?
I mean, you're probably not going to continue being best mates, are you?
No,
because
you're not.
It seems like you're prioritizing having a casual fling and sleeping around with your best mate's sister. And does that sound very respectful? Doesn't to me.
But what if your sister wants it as well? It's like you can't.
Yeah, well, you can't stop it.
Yeah,
you can't stop it. So you can allow that to proceed. I mean, not that. I mean, it's out of your control. So you can't allow it. You can't disallow it. But if you're so-called best mates and that's your intention is to just go off with your so-called best mate's sister and to just be casual with them, then expect your best mate to not want to be your best mate anymore and to probably not want to be your friend anymore. And if that's something that you're willing to sacrifice for a casual fling and a casual hookup with their sister, go for it. But, you know, if this person is truly a best mate of yours or a good friend, then, yeah, I think you'd be an idiot if it was really a meaningful connection to you. You'd be an idiot. However, if your intentions were a bit more fulfilling, if you had interest in them, I think the most respectful thing you can do before potentially pursuing anything with their sister is to actually be truthful and tell your mate about it. Say, hey mate, like, you know, I'm semi-interested in your sister. I think she's a good girl. I think she's quite good looking, blah, 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 whatever it is. And my intentions are actually to want to go out on a date with her and see if there is something that I could potentially pursue here. I think if you come to your mate with that honesty, then your mate should appreciate that honesty in the first place. Yeah, they might disagree and it might leave them in a place where they might feel a bit uncomfortable, because it is an uncomfortable thing to hear, but they would appreciate the honesty. And if you're a person that acts with integrity a lot of the time and you're a pretty genuine, authentic person, you'd probably have a bit of luck here, and your mate would probably see that, because they probably wouldn't want to be your mate in the first place if they didn't think you were an authentic person to start off with. So,
well, I think by just going up to your mate and saying like, hey, I'm really interested in your sister, and you know, I wanted to come to you first almost to get the blessing. That's the non-cowardly thing to do.
Yep.
The cowardly thing to do is always do something behind someone's back, hope they don't find out. But, you know, that never ends well anyway. So
absolutely,
you know,
it doesn't.
you're better off going to your friend, and who knows, maybe they're like, bro, I ship both of you.
Yeah.
Or they might say, look, I'm not really comfortable with it unless there is that sort of like, you know, serious intentionality. I mean, one of your mates could be a serial F-boy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They could be someone who is not good or doesn't have any intentions to stay in a monogamous sort of relationship, or at least give it a go.
Yeah.
So
And especially if you know that they are someone that really just wants a casual hookup and a fun time. The fact that they are, wanting to maybe pursue that with your sister and your so-called good mates, I think that just says a lot about the person. The fact that they are, coming to a place that is quite close to home, and not looking for something external. I mean, there's a lot of fish in the sea, and they're choosing their best mate's sister. I think there's a level of disrespect there, especially if they're keeping it from them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. I like that.
Next one. Let me ask you, mate.
Go for it.
Which of your friends would you want to have on the podcast?
If we want to get cancelled, Sterling Ellis, he'll turn that into a
impulsive podcast.
Yeah, impulsive podcast. He'll try to get some porn stars on as well, knowing him. But we want something deep and philosophical, and we want to just really think about life and its purpose and its meaning.
Modern society.
I've got a few people. I could get someone like our friend Gabriel Zaffron. He's
Shout out,
pretty good.
Gabe. Yep.
Get Simon on. I think Simon has some interesting perspectives.
Absolutely.
If we want someone to teach us how to make smoothies, we already had him on, Sam, from Blitz Bar.
Absolutely.
Plug that. Episode 5, if anyone wants to hear about the birth of that.
Shout out there. Alrighty, next one. What one piece of advice would you give to your younger self that you think you would really benefit from?
Think less, do more. I think when I was younger, and this is for anything, right? I would always put myself under a lot of pressure by thinking about the worst case scenario. I would always think about, all right, for example, instead of saying why I should do something, I would think about, yeah, that's precisely it. Like I would think about why I should do it rather than why not do it. You know what I mean? So that could be things like traveling. Maybe when I was a bit younger, I was like, oh, I can't go traveling in this time period because that means I'll have to like take time off work or whatever, especially right before lockdown. I was 19 years old. And then you have this big misconception that like 18 to 24, life's going to be slow. It's not going to fly by that quickly. Boom. 4 years ago, we had a lockdown. And my biggest regret, I would say, from that is that I wish I would just do more things that I wanted to and not kind of overcomplicate things in my head and think about the consequences of doing it. For example, traveling within a certain amount of time. Like I feel like I've got a bit of catch-up traveling to do now because I didn't take my opportunities when I was younger. You?
Yeah, well, it's a big question. What advice would I give?
That's just the first thing in my mind, to be fair.
For sure.
There's probably other things that are more useful. But
yeah. Well, what advice would I give my younger self that I think I would have benefited from back then? I think younger, growing up in school, even in the later year levels of school, I was always quite sensitive. I'd take things to heart a lot. I wouldn't say I was ever a people pleaser, because I was always quite good at, knowing what I wanted to do, what I valued, and sticking to that. So I never really changed my persona around different people. But I think I did take things to heart when things maybe felt a bit unfavorable towards me, or someone said something to me that I didn't quite align with or agree with. So I took things to heart, and that was a bit of a downfall, I feel like, for me in my younger year levels growing up, because it makes you feel quite anxious towards certain things, anxious towards certain people, makes you question a lot about yourself, makes you have a lot of self-doubt. It potentially holds you back from doing what you want to do as well. Fear of judgment as well. And that's a massive theme when you're 14, 15, 16, just trying to find your feet, trying to work out what you want to be and who you want to become and what you like and dislike. So in order to stop taking things to heart, I would kind of just say, like, it's easier said than done now, in hindsight, because in that moment it's quite hard. But I would say, don't take things to heart by surrounding yourself around the people that bring out the best in you. Okay, be around the people that bring out the best in you, and then you won't take things to heart. You won't take things so personally, because if you're around people that bring out the best in you, you realize when things are banterous. You realize when things are just pretty light and jovial, and you can make that contrast quite easily in your head. When you're around people that are a bit iffy with their friendship towards you. They're maybe not so clear cut. You don't really know where you stand with them. They want to be your friend one day. The next day, they don't really, give you a bar type of thing. Those are the ones that make you feel like you're second guessing yourself. And those are the ones where when they say comments, it eats you up a bit more. So just be around the people that bring out the best in you and good quality people. And it doesn't need to be like 10, 12 people. A bunch of good quality people around you, and you will be so much more happier as a kid growing up with less anxious thoughts, with less intrusive thoughts, with less self-doubt, and you'll be in a much better headspace and happier headspace to go on and crack on with doing whatever it is you want to do.
I really like that. It's a good bit of advice, but I reckon younger Jeremy would have really benefited from that.
Absolutely, for sure.
Next question.
Ilan, favorite book you'd recommend and why?
Can't say I've got a favorite, but there is one book I read about a year and a half ago. It's called No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Robert Glover. I think he was on Chris Williams in Modern Wisdom recently. The whole book is based on the premise. It's more so for men, but the whole idea is that a lot of men walk around with this idea of called toxic shame. Just by virtue of being men, they're somehow walking with this shame, which means that just their very presence in the world is a bad thing. And a lot of men grow up in, for example, households with dysfunctional parents, and their whole attachment style's messed up, so they end up becoming people pleasers, and it's very interesting. So this book talks about like very common behaviors about men, and it's about the idea of like, it's definitely a professional development book, but it's very centered on like psychology and how, for example, the way you've been brought up can impact your relationships, how you do in life, whether it's a business pursuit. But it's very, very interesting in that it's very relatable, I think, for a lot of men. It also talks about the whole idea that how to be a little bit more successful and whatnot. It's a great all-around book. What about you?
Amazing. Yeah, I would have to say The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. It talks a lot about the present moment. It talks a lot about separating your ego and disassociating from your ego. Links to my previous answer about not taking things to heart, because that's very much egocentric. Your ego loves to control how it is you feel in certain moments. So the book, ever since I read that book, I feel like I've been a lot more present and at ease in the present moment. When I'm with my friends, I'm not thinking about what we're doing next, or I'm not thinking about what's going on in their minds, and I'm not thinking about just egocentric type of things, which we have a tendency to do naturally as humans. It allows you to just chill and enjoy the mundane and the bare basics in life. And when you can start to appreciate the bare basics in life, when you can start to appreciate just going for a walk and appreciating the walk and not needing to necessarily have a coffee, not necessarily needing to have an external source of entertainment, when you can start to just enjoy being in your own company as well, everything above that starts to become even greater. So it's like a drug in a way. When you can start to just enjoy the smaller things in life, the more grander things like your travel experiences, your parties, your celebrations with friends, they feel even greater and even more exciting because you're already happy and you're already bubbly with the smaller things, and anything else is just a bonus. So The Power of Now was seriously a life-changing book. As cliche as that sounds, it really was. So
awesome. All right. What are your biggest icks/red flags in a girl?
Oh, here we go. Bit more juiciness to this one.
We're a broadcast now. What are you?
Bit of juice here. Biggest icks and red flags in a girl.
What do you think?
I would say, red flags. I'd say a big red flag is their potentially lack of friends. Okay.
Yeah.
If they don't have a friendship group or very minimal amounts of friends, that's a red flag to me. I'm questioning why they can't have good quality friends, why they don't have good surrounding people around them, because it also makes me feel like, in a relationship with me, are they going to be quite dependent? Are they going to be quite clingy? You want to be dating someone and with someone that is their own person, that is an independent person that has their own life without you in a way, and that when you come together, you're complementing each other's lives. You're bringing your life and their life together, and that's what makes such a fun, fulfilling relationship. We're talking hobbies, we're talking friends, we're talking activities, work, all those things. And I think it says a lot about someone if they don't have a friendship group, or at least some good quality friends around them. And it doesn't need to be 10 to 12 friends, but even just like 3 to 5 good quality friends that they can call their sisters, like their homies, like they can rely on them. If they don't have that, that's a big red flag to me.
Can I challenge you on that?
Yep.
I don't think that for girls it's as easy to have friendship groups as it is for guys.
So like I said, not necessarily a friendship group, but a few good quality friends.
I think quality over quantity is not, we both agree on that. But I would say there are a lot of girls out there who are quite introverted and they enjoy maybe 1 or 2 good friends.
Fine.
And they're not necessarily dependent in a partnership because they're introverted. So they've learned to derive energy from being on their own. Would you say that's still a problem? If they've got like maybe 1 or 2 really close friends and you've met them and they're really good people, but they're just introverted, would you say that's still a red flag given it's a low quantity of people?
I think 1 or 2 is different to just... I think 2 is different to 1. I think if they've only got 1 friend, that's still a bit red flaggy to me.
There was like once this video I was watching and the question asked,
like if they're such a good quality person, they've got so much going for them, they've got hobbies, they're smart, they're switched on, they're bubbly, why do they only have 1 friend?
Because maybe, and this is the whole point of the video, is like, it was asking a guy that's applicable to girls, which is like, there's people I know and then there's my brothers. So it's like, there's no in between. There's either best friends, which you could say are just like, brothers or sisters.
Yeah.
And there's people, and for me, I'm very much like that. I'm lucky that I've got a friendship group and there's a lot of people in that friendship group I would consider like close mates, brothers, you being one of them. But then there's also just a group of people that I know and I would never catch up with them. I wouldn't call them my friends. And that's just how I operate. And I'm saying if there is a girl out there who is very much like, I don't need a lot of friends. I need maybe 1 or 2 and they're, loyal. Everyone else, like, they're just people I know. I'd rather not spend time on fake conversation, and I'd rather, instead of spending time with someone I don't really give a shit about just for the sake of saying, hey, I've got 3 or 4 friends, I'd rather be at home, doing something I value. Maybe it's, exercising, going on a hike, maybe just surrounding herself in her own company rather
Fair
than
enough. Maybe.
But I get the point, because if you don't have friends, it's the whole thing about like, if you've been with a lot of people and you couldn't lock down a relationship, what does it say more about the people you are with or you yourself? It's
exactly.
like the common denominator.
The common denominator.
So I get that.
Yeah, and I think I love, my friends are so important to me. Family is so important to me. I love people. I'm a people's person. So if I'm with a girl, if I want her to be my girlfriend, I want her to be involved with my friends too. She's going to be hanging out with my friends, and I would want the same as well. I'd want to be around her and her friends and her family. So this links to family as well. Big red flag is, if they really don't have friends, if they actually don't have friends and they don't have a huge association with their family, they're not a family orientated person, those are red flags to me. If I'm going for a third red flag, I'm also saying if they treat me differently to how they treat other people in terms of kindness, persona, like if they're not nice to me, if they're not nice to the waitress and to the people on the street that they come into contact with, and to the person that they're at the convenience store with and they're charging them for fuel, if they're not nice and kind to those people in the same way that they are to me, that's a massive red flag. That speaks more about their personality versus, I guess, their associations and relationships.
Fair. My one is someone who can't take accountability, and as an extension to that, someone who creates a problem and then behaves as though they're the victim in that problem that they've created.
Massive.
That
Huge.
That really shits me off, because you think about big picture stuff when, obviously if you take it to its extremes, let's say you try and raise a family with them and you're navigating all of life's biggest issues, all the challenges that come up. Imagine how hard they're going to be to argue with. They're not going to want to collaborate with you and find solutions. They'll always be playing victim. They'll always manipulate you as well. And their reactions from the problems that they've created will make you think as though you've done something wrong. And if you're in that situation for long enough, it can become quite toxic. So I'd say someone who, can't take accountability and always reverts to a victim mindset, especially identifying as a victim when they've created a problem. It's like, getting upset at you, or rather like the whole idea of like the person who cheats on someone, then gets caught and then gets sad for being caught. You know what I mean? Like being sorry because they were caught rather than being sorry because they did it. So that's definitely one.
It's a good one.
I'd say another one is someone who dramatizes things.
Catastrophizes?
Yeah, not necessarily catastrophizes, but their reactions to things are just over the top. And it's genuinely just not productive. It's not like,
just irrational.
Irrational reactions to, for example, the milk being spilt on the floor.
Yeah.
Honestly, sometimes it could be indicative of like, they're experiencing some sort of mental sort of discomfort. They could be going through depression, anxiety. And I'm not necessarily talking about that because some people do face debilitating mental disorders. I'm talking more about the people who know they're dramatizing it and they're doing it to get a reaction from other people. The whole damsel in distress. So again, identifying as a victim, I really, it shits me off. And someone who, is so insecure that they take it out on you. Someone who will make you feel guilty for the fact that they haven't attended to their own insecurities.
Good ones. I like it.
So yeah, let's move on.
Is body count different for girls than it is for guys? Now, yes, we did make a body count episode, but this might not be a question that we actually touched on enough.
True.
Whether it is different for guys and girls. And I'm going to say, yes, it is.
It
is different for guys and girls.
Oh, it's different. Okay, why is it different?
Because I think it comes back to, if we want to be a bit matter of fact here, it's the lock and the key mentality, whether we're dealing with a bad lock or a good key. I think naturally women are the gatekeepers to sex than what men are. I think, a lot of time just naturally as men will say yes to sexual activities with women more often than a female would say yes to that of men. And so I think if we're talking purely sex here, and I truly believe that girls have more power in saying yes versus no compared to guys, because most guys will say yes. I would say it's different because girls can naturally be a bit more selective than guys. Because guys will, like I said, say yes. Girls can naturally be more selective. So therefore, if you're more selective, of course it's different.
So the interesting thing about the data is that when we did the episode a few weeks ago, it shows that having a high body count is disadvantageous for both males and females. But evolutionarily, it's bad for both, honestly. I don't think there's actually a massive benefit to be derived, male or female. I don't think it's gendered. What is biologically more taxing is for a girl, because if you get pregnant, you can't afford to have that many sexual partners, because a guy, from an evolutionary standpoint, can spread his seed and then go to someone else. Whereas a woman, if they get pregnant, that's the next 9 months, for example. They have to attend to that need. So it's more biologically expensive for a girl to have a higher body count because of the risks of pregnancy. Whereas with a guy, we're lucky and privileged. We don't have to kind of be exposed to that. So the risk is greater. But from a psychological aspect, does it impact males or females more? I think it's probably marginal. Honestly, I think just having a high one is probably not the best for both. But yeah, my opinion is more so just on this isn't really informed by that red pill manosphere crap. It's more so what's more taxing evolutionarily, by default, who can, in a sense, survive a higher body count. It would be men, but the data, the actual data that was conducted, it's bad for both. So I don't know. It's a bit of an interesting topic. What has been your most regrettable life decision, and what would you have done differently if you were given that time back?
Huge question. I when it comes to regrets in life, I actually don't think they're... I'm a big believer that you take a lot from what it is you encounter, for good and for bad. But when I think about, all right, regrets in life, and what would I have done differently? Two very different answers. One, I'm going to say the first one that comes to mind here is my grandparents that have passed away. I wish I spent more time with them. I wish I feel like they were extremely present in my life. I was extremely present in their life. And, life does get in the way and we're all busy, but I feel like there is always more time that I could have spent with them. And if I had the time again, I would have done that. They mean a lot to me. They meant a lot to me. They've shaped who I am today. So that is definitely a regret, I would say. Wish I'd spent more time with them. Second one is quite different. I would say I've regretted in past relationships. I would say I'm quite a giver. I'd say I like to. I'd say like I'm a bit, romantic at heart, and I like to give, and I like to give happiness to people, and that's like a love language in a way, like gift, like not gift giving, but just like giving in a relationship. And I feel like I've regretted doing that for people where it hasn't felt like it's been reciprocated towards me, where I feel like I've been the main character in all of the giving, and like I'm pouring my heart out to this person. I'm being vulnerable, telling them how I feel about them, and making them feel as loved as possible, but then not actually receiving it in the same level of reciprocation back. And that fucking sucks. That really sucks. And anyone that has felt this way in a relationship can attest to that. It sucks when you feel like you are giving so much to one person, and it's not being, you're not feeling that back. It's not being reciprocated. So I regret doing that. I regret being that person that is feeling like they're giving a lot and not giving it back, getting it back, because it feels more so that like I'm lowering my self-esteem and I'm lowering my self-worth. I'm not holding myself accountable to who I truly believe I am as a person. And I feel like that diminishes who I am as a person. So yeah, that's something I've regretted, and something that I will definitely be mindful of for future relationships. I think reciprocation is very important, and doing it for the people that are good people and mean good towards you, and aren't just like receivers and takers, is really important to recognize. Yeah,
I like that one. First thing, I really respect the whole thing about the grandparents aspect. My great-grandmother passed away last year, and we made an episode about the whole thing of dealing with grief.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, you never feel like there's enough time. You can spend a lot of time with them, but you always wish you could spend more. But yeah, and then the other part about, giving in a relationship and it not being reciprocated, I think that also ties to something. One of my regrets was like, there was once a relationship I was in, and I should have ended it earlier. I could have ended it a few months earlier, and I was delaying the inevitable. And I think that goes for a lot of young people as well, maybe our age group, who are in relationships that aren't serving them. Friendship as well. Like, it doesn't have to be just, romantic, but I was in a situation where I knew I was delaying the inevitable, and I think I was just trying to give it as much time as possible, but it was just deteriorating. And, at the time, I was never seeing them as long-term potential.
Yeah.
This is a few years ago. I think this was like one of those lockdown relationships.
We can honestly make a whole episode about this.
But and I regret just not ending it earlier, so I could have a bit more fun on a boys' trip, as stupid as that sounds, or not have to feel like I'm accountable every time I'm with my friends and I have to respond to someone. And
yeah,
it's little things like that. I know we're laughing about the whole thing of like, I could have gone on a boys' trip and enjoyed it more, but it's not necessarily like the aspect of being single. It's the aspect of not having to deal with a person who wasn't serving you in a relationship. And when I say serving, I don't mean like a fucking waitress. I mean someone who was draining your energy and wasn't a good partner.
Absolutely.
Who wasn't reciprocating. So
for sure.
And yeah, just on that last bit, I would also say to worry less.
Worry less.
Worry less.
Yep. Worry is not
for
good.
regret, but we can have another episode about that.
All right, we've got a few more here, so let's crack on.
All right, hold on. Don't jump. There's a few good ones here. Let's not. There's a few good ones. All right. Do you worry?
Let's go a bit quick fire here.
All right. Okay, fine. We'll go quick fire. Do you worry that your podcast has gone from being a show about giving advice to young people going through a period of big change, finishing school, starting uni, to now being a typical broadcast for your recent topics? I'll quickly give you my perspective on this one. I don't think so, because the topics we're speaking about are things that are very relevant for young people. Okay, let's talk about, can males and females be, friends? You'll notice when you finish school, you're going to be choosing which friends you want to surround yourself with, because you no longer have school to kind of keep you all together. So you're going to be making the active decision and conscious decision to be like, okay, I'd rather hang out with this person. Now, when it comes to, for example, males and female friends, you're going to get into a relationship, and you might realize, hey, your partner's spending a lot of time with this friend of theirs. And then you listen to a podcast like ours and like, okay, this is not a uncommon feeling. So I think, it could come off a bit broadcasty, but I think the way we convey a topic doesn't necessarily mean we're broadcast. The topic could be broadcasty. So that's my kind of perspective.
Yeah.
I just don't think we come off like douchebags. That's the main thing.
I think that's the main point is like, you could call these broadcasty topics talking about female friendships, talking about body counts, but I think of them as topics about modern society. These are the topics that are on the tip of our lips and that people want to hear and that people are inquisitive about, and it shapes, I guess, our values. It shapes what we believe in truly. And it's about how you deliver the topic and how you deliver your response. Like you said, we're not douchebags. We hopefully don't come across that way.
Maybe you are with the whole key and lock analogy. I'm taking the piss. But it's true. Like, for example, we take the body count episode, right? That has the potential to...
That could be so broadcasty if we were to sit here and just say, really...
If I had a Lamborghini and someone was trying to get into my Lamborghini, do you get the analogy? Like, that's what you would see on a broadcast. You would get these very kind of rogue perspectives. And we'd like to be a bit evidence informed.
Yeah, exactly.
We are part of the allied health industry.
Absolutely. So there's differences.
Is hooking up with your close mate's hot sister okay?
Oh, geez, we've jumped to the next one. Is hooking up with your close mate's hot sister okay?
No.
I feel like we've already talked about that one.
All right.
What do you think are the top 3 saddest events in human history? Fuck, what a switch up.
I think any sort of Holocaust or massacre, like you had the Holocaust during World War II, the Rwandan genocide. I don't know if there's 3, but like that would be the most sad. I think the bubonic plague killed a lot of people in
9/11.
9/11. Anytime there's been a world war, honestly.
World wars, anything involving terrorism, terror attacks.
October 7th in Israel.
Attacks on humans for the sake of just being humans. For the sake of their religion, for the sake of their identity. Those are the saddest events that can happen in human history, because that is just blatant hatred towards a human because of being a human, because of their identity. Don't think there's much sadder than that.
And then obviously like the natural disasters that happen, any tsunami, earthquake, for example, Hiroshima, the 2011 earthquake and tsunami in Japan, those sort of things for sure. How authentic are you on your podcast compared to how you are in real life? Do you ever discuss topics / give advice and experiences that you personally haven't experienced yourself? What do you think?
Well, when we talk about authenticity, I feel like that's an answer for the audience to answer. I mean, you can't really just sit here and say like, I'm as authentic as I am here in real life. Like, actions speak louder than words, but I do think we are. I do think I am. I think we've become more authentic than what we maybe once were previously. Not to say that we weren't authentic in the earlier episodes, but I feel like we've definitely taken a stance on being unconditionally ourselves a bit more now in the past month in particular. So I would say yes. And then in terms of do we ever discuss these topics and experiences outside of here? We do all the time. And that's the reason why we wanted to start this in the first place, because we were talking philosophical content. We were talking relationships. We were talking about going through our 20s. And that's why we wanted to start this, because we thought, fuck it. Like, how good would it be for some people to hopefully get that bit of value, hopefully from us, that we found in each other?
Yeah, I mean, with the whole authenticity bit, the way I measure authenticity on this is, are you willing to share the same opinions you would share with your friends in a private environment as you would here? I would say largely in my case, I'm pretty transparent. So in the sense that I'm saying the same things with my friends as I am on here. I think part of that's just I think part of that's just confidence. Like we've done 50 episodes. At a certain point, you're just like, I'll just say what I mean and mean what I say. And I don't think we're saying anything necessarily controversial. By all means, we're saying things that people might disagree with. But with that being said, it's like they're our opinions and we're confident in them. And I think in life you have to be courageous. You have to stand for something. Even if other people are going to crucify you for it, it's fine because you have your own opinions. The last thing you want to do is be a sheep. And even at the risk of sounding a bit controversial, I think it's fine because
you're not going to please everyone.
You're not going to please everyone. That's fine.
And I wouldn't want to please everyone.
Yeah, you wouldn't.
Like, life wouldn't be fun and challenging then.
And I think this podcast would be the most boring thing in the world if it was just how to be the most politically correct at every second in time. Because truthfully...
Couldn't think of anything worse.
Well, because then that would be inauthentic.
Yeah.
You look at all the companies in the world that are trying to be incredibly politically correct because they're posturing, they're pandering. And you know it's not authentic because then if you go into their workplaces, none of those values...
Ask the staff members.
Yeah, it's like, do you actually believe in the stuff you're promoting? And they'll say no.
Yeah.
And I have no issues if you actually do believe in that stuff and you live by that. But it's just people are incongruent. So I'd rather be congruent in something, even if it might not be a popular point of view.
Absolutely.
Because I'd rather be authentic with that. And with the second part, do you ever discuss topics and give advice and experiences? I try not to give advice in general because I think that people should experience things for themselves. But I can think of useful tips that I've heard about like things that I haven't experienced. So like I'm not going to be here telling everyone best travel tips for Morocco because you went to Morocco. People can ask you that. So I try to stay away from that. But I guess as you said, with the philosophical topics,
absolutely,
it's fun.
Ilan, who's your dream guest and who would you want to have on this podcast, dead or alive? Ultimate dream guest.
Oh, far out. I'd love to have Chris Williamson on, alive. Same. From The Modern Wisdom. I'd love to have Winston Churchill. So he's dead now.
Okay.
So he was the wartime leader of the UK during World War II. So interesting, to hear his stories and,
fair enough.
How he fought the Nazis, I like my history. What about you?
Agree with Chris Williamson. Would love to have David Goggins on the podcast. I think when we talk about personal development, when we talk about what it is to challenge yourself as a person, he is the first one that comes to mind when we think of these things. And I think he'd be a freaking phenomenal person to have a chat with. So I'd say he would be my dream guest, David Goggins. Now, here is a bit of a fun one. Would you rather have the hands of a physio or the brain of a psychologist? I think this is a bit of a
Well, how about this?
dig at us, me being physio, you being
future
psychologist.
How about this? I've got an answer for you. Brain of a psychologist is what I prefer. And what do you prefer? Hands of a physio. And yeah, that's why we're in the careers that we're in.
It's a fun one. You guys can decide that. All right. I think there's a bit more to a physio than just being good with hands.
I'd argue that there's a lot of brain power for being a physio. You're seeing clients all day. I think
there's elements of psychology to our practice half the time too.
I think so too.
All right. Here we go. Bit more of a personal one. Looks like it's towards me. Dear Jeremy, how have you found full-time work? What has this transition into adulthood looked like for you? How has it affected your routine? Example, gym, socializing, saving and spending money. Has the novelty worn off? I'm 6 weeks into full-time work now as a physiotherapist. Loving it, learning so much, feel like I'm really challenging myself, leaving home at the end of the day feeling really fulfilled and satisfied knowing that I'm helping people and I'm making people feel better. And that makes me feel good as a person. So loving full-time work. How has the transition affected me in my adulthood? Yeah, well, like I'm still a kid. I'm still going to be having fun. I'm still going to be going out. I'm still going to be being around my mates, socializing like we see here in the question. So I feel like it's actually been, funnily enough, easier to do these things whilst having full-time work, at least with the hours that I'm working. I feel like as a uni student, I always had assignments in the back of my mind. I always had placement in the back of my mind. I always felt like you were trying to obviously do your best, but do your best because you wanted to get good marks, impress people. Whereas like now as working full time, it's all on you. It's all on you. You want to be the best person you can be for this role in this job. And that means that I therefore don't need to be thinking about like trying to impress other people, which I found like was a common theme when you're at uni. Okay. And I feel like in terms of my hours, it's quite flexible. You know, I've got my nights to myself now where I don't need to be thinking about doing the university study, watching the lectures, thinking about my upcoming assignments in the week. When I'm at work, I give work 110% effort, and I'll do research, studying as well whilst I'm in those work hours. When I come home, it's time for me to do whatever I want to do. And that has been so fulfilling because I feel like I can just unconditionally enjoy that time. I can unconditionally go to the gym and not think about other things on my mind that are work related or that once were uni related. I can see my friends and be completely present in those moments. I can enjoy my weekends more without having to worry about doing the assignment study. And with saving and spending money, I mean, I was away for 4 or 5 weeks before starting full-time work. So there's money to be saved up now, but I'm living at home still. So I feel like, you know, I'm very lucky to be in this position where I'm not actually spending as much as some other people might. You know, my expenses come, you know, through friends and some personal expenses and going out on weekends. But, you know, I'm not paying rent and things that some people might be paying for when they're living out of home. So saving is coming easier with a full-time gig, which is great and it's excellent. So the novelty of the full-time work, look, I'm sure it is a novelty period. It's the honeymoon period for me right now. And I feel like my energy levels are still quite high. They might be challenged come the winter months, I'm sure. But it hasn't worn off. I'm loving it. And I think that's the most important thing is if you enter a job that you're feeling well supported in your environment, you've got great people around you, and you're leaving the job at the end of the day feeling fulfilled, feeling happy, feeling like you've got some purpose there, then the novelty hopefully will never wear off. So yeah.
Love it. Very good.
Okay. Next question.
Last question.
Final question here with a bang. What is our opinion on OnlyFans? Ilan, take it away.
My opinion. Okay. I think OnlyFans is an interesting one because in a time where, you know, feminism has made such great strides for, you know, equal rights, egalitarianism, and the whole idea of, you know, viewing females as our counterparts in society rather than objects and commodities, I find it quite interesting that the OnlyFans information has now been kind of postured as a form of female empowerment because of the whole idea that you can be making a lot of money and you can be, you know, as financially successful as a man is.
Expressing yourself.
Correct. But I don't think there's particularly... And look, everyone's entitled to do what they want. I understand there's people out there who are not from a privileged position. They might have kids to take care of. They might be in abusive relationships. Whatever the case may be, that might be their only choice with regards to any form of income earning. But
only choice?
For some people, but for the vast majority of people, I think that OnlyFans is a net negative. And I think it's a net negative for both men and women who are content creators, although it's by far majority it's girls who are the content creators. But I think it's also a net negative for the consumers. Now, starting with the creators themselves, what you're doing is you're essentially commodifying the most vulnerable and intimate parts of yourself for someone else's bare basic biological, physiological needs, which is like, for example, masturbation, right? People are consuming this content for a pure impulsive need. And sure, you might be making a bucket load of money and you might be, you know, able to buy, you know, that fancy Gucci handbag, or you can go on any holiday you want. But the truth of the matter is people can ruin, there's no free lunch. You can make quick money, but there's always a cost to it. And if you've got kids one day and they're at school and they say, and their friends are telling them, hey, I've seen your mum on this site, or it gets leaked, I don't know how you'd be happy. Maybe you'd say, well, they won't be crying because they'll be getting picked up in like a fancy car. If that's your prerogative, sure. But I think in the time where we've started to talk about how, like, you know, women and men, but it's mostly women, shouldn't be objectified and commodified, I think we are commodifying things. Because the thing is, it's a transaction. You're paying money to see someone nude, to get yourself aroused and, you know, fulfill a basic, like a physiological need. And I think for men, there's a lot of literature now coming out that pornography is not good. It's not good for your dopamine receptors. You can become desensitized to everything, sets unrealistic portrayals. But for women, it's like, you know, I think there's a lot of things you can do in life. We live in Australia. We have the access to apply ourselves in very noble ways. And you're telling me that, you know, your best contribution to society is to help some guy get their load off? I know it sounds disgusting and it sounds quite crude, but I think there's better ways to apply yourself. And yes, you might get a lot of money at the start. You might be top grossing, but it's going to ruin your professional reputation with time. People just don't tend to respect that line of work. And I think, yeah, I don't know. Do you want to challenge me on that?
I love the analogy you make about there's no free lunch. I think that's a really important point to think about here, because a lot of the positivity movement towards OnlyFans would say, but it's empowering. Like you said, it's empowering for women. It allows them to get a good amount of money as well to support themselves, etc., etc. Who are we to say, like, you know, you can have that same mentality towards running a drug cartel, you know, selling. It's true.
Drug cartel, you know, what?
Running a drug cartel, selling weaponry, selling illegal products, selling things that are, you know, typically viewed as sinister in society, typically viewed as unhealthy contributions to society. Yeah, you might make a bucket load of money. Yeah, making that bucket load of money might feel empowering towards you, but there's no free lunch, right? There's a trade-off here, and that trade-off might be the reputation that comes with what it is you're choosing to make that money. So I think this is where we need to be intentional when we think about the opinion on OnlyFans. Not so much about the money making aspect in terms of empowerment, but the cost that comes with it. Because in life, there's always going to be trade-offs, okay? And the trade-off here is, yeah, you might be making a lot of money, but, you know, like you said,
are your private parts really worth $2 per person? Like, are we setting a price?
Absolutely. And is that,
like, I don't think
if that's empowering towards you, then so be it. But you know, I would tend to disagree with that. And you know, I feel like, you know, if I'm dating a woman, and I'd feel extremely uncomfortable knowing that she was portraying her most vulnerable self to random people on the internet. Like, that's a vulnerable thing. And
they're gratifying their sexual needs over that. You know, the point of being in a relationship, a monogamous relationship, is that things are reserved for you that aren't reserved for others. And it doesn't make you insecure because you don't want your partner to have an OnlyFans. It makes you probably a very normal partner. I think it's someone who understands that this shit is not healthy. It's not right.
Yeah, and I think
in a relationship context, like, I think it's just wrong.
Yeah, and this is in a relationship context. And, you know, the question might be, well, what if you're not interested in a relationship? What if you're not interested in looking for a man? What if you want to stay single and do this for yourself? Which is an absolutely fair question. But then I think you need to ask yourself is, well, is it doing a service? Is it doing a service to women in society, to the feminism movement, to just females in general, to building females up in the workplace in general? Is it a positive? Is this positively affecting women in general by advocating for this and by pursuing OnlyFans?
Yeah, I agree, because the truth of the matter is, you know, nowadays in workplaces we hear about the gender pay gap, and we talk about the fact that women aren't taken seriously in certain job roles because they're looked at, for example, for their physical attributes rather than, for example, their merit.
Absolutely. And that's why...
Do you think that, and there's OnlyFans, I would say it
doing
does
a
a disservice
to
because
that.
instead of saying, hey, like I look at you beyond just your physical attributes, I look at you at the merit, the value you can bring, the person you are beyond anything.
Yeah.
This industry is essentially commodifying what's vulnerable and separating. It's sad because people don't know that, like, people will watch, like, be subscribed to OnlyFans creators and stuff, and you know they don't care about them. They're literally just gratifying a sexual impulse, and it is what it is. I will never tell anyone what not to do and to do, but I will at least tell people there are things to consider beyond making quick money.
Yeah, and this is our perspective at the end of the day, which has been asked for. So there you go. I think it's denigrating the women that are actually trying to build women up in a different light other than their looks.
Awesome. Jeremy, we're going to wrap it up now, but we have a giveaway that we posted about last week, and this is going to be out on Tuesday. So tell us, what's the reminder? What does everyone have to do?
Absolutely. So we've posted a giveaway last week on our socials, and that's our giveaway towards the Breath House. And the Breath House is fantastic when it comes to self-development, working on yourself, focusing on your breath work. And we're giving away 10 classes valued at over $300 towards the Breath House for a lucky winner. This could be you. 10 vouchers, 10 classes, which is a massive amount. And I've done it myself, and I absolutely loved my time there, and I'm sure you will too. And in addition to that, you'll also receive a free hoodie from the Breath House, as well as a $50 voucher to spend at Rebel Sport on whatever it is you choose. So all you got to do is like the original post, the original reel we posted about our giveaway bundle with the Breath House, and you got to follow us on Instagram, and that's it. It's simple as that. So enter, and it could be yours, just like that.
For sure. Anyways, on that note, guys, we hope you've enjoyed. I know that there would be some nice spicy opinions that people don't agree with, and I love that because we need a little bit more controversy, I reckon. But yeah, on that note, Jeremy, spoken very well. I've liked your opinions.
You too, mate. And pat on the back to us for getting towards 50 episodes, and I can't wait for the next 50 together.
Onwards and upwards, my friend.
Alrighty. Have a good week, everyone, and we'll see you on the next one.